And I'm kind of not understanding if she had the noodles naked or what. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, Leilani of Barbados. I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky because I listened to the last episode of Archetypes, which is about the dragon lady Asian thing. I'm just going to say right from the jump that this is about a straw man argument where it's like, oh, I'm not the worst for complaining. There are other people complaining too, not telling us any kind of empirical evidence as to why her complaints about women in Hollywood are so. Just saying, well, other people complain. Plus, she's a really bad interviewer because she just keeps talking. She doesn't ask those kind of questions like, that's interesting that you told me that. I'd like to know more about that. She lets him carry the show, the podcast. Also, there are a lot of jump cuts. That's really hard to recognize with audio, but I can recognize it, which means that it's really bad. Of course, you can see jump cuts here and here and here, but you should not be able to see it with audio, if you know what I mean, or you should not be able to hear it. Unfortunately, Procter & Gamble gave her such a big platform by responding to her juvenile letter, and now she's been riding that wave up into her 40s. Like, imagine that. And if you're ever wondering what she does when she's not saving the world and not doing public service or whatever, she's on her couch watching TV because, as you can see, she knows so much about TV. It's almost like she should have been a producer or a director because she has so much knowledge. But if she wasn't so self-absorbed, if she wasn't so introspective, is another way of saying it. If she could see the world through other people's eyes, knowing the knowledge that she has, being raised on television or whatever, she would have been amazing as a producer or director. But unfortunately, she was too self-consumed and couldn't go in that direction. So just in the intro, she is talking about herself, of course, but she's also plagiarizing from the jump. Okay, so right from the jump, she already makes her audience step back because she says,
and the types of languages I would hear, honestly, more than you can imagine, from Armenian to Farsi, Korean, Spanish, Hebrew. Los Angeles?
It's LA. It's New York. Does she forget that America is an immigrant nation? You cannot imagine the languages I heard. You can't even imagine. You, dumb-dos, cannot imagine. And she says she remembers so vividly this story. The plagiarism is right here.
My mom and I, we would often go to the Korean spa together. Now, for those of you who haven't been to one before, it's a very humbling experience for a girl going through puberty because you enter a room with women from ages 9 to maybe 90, all walking around naked and waiting to get a body scrub on one of these tables that are all lined up in a row. All I wanted was a bathing suit, which you're not allowed, by the way. And once I was over that adolescent embarrassment, my mom and I, we would go upstairs, we would sit in a room, and we would have a steaming bowl of the most delicious noodles. And we'd look around at all of these other women. These beautiful Korean women who had embraced the generational tradition of the jjimjilbang and shared it with one another. Now, that was a part of the Asian American culture that I knew. I hadn't known all the stigmas and archetypes that so many women of Asian descent specifically had faced until many, many years later.
She then had hot noodles in the spa where they were naked. And I'm kind of not understanding if she had the noodles naked or what. There's like a gap in the story is what I can say, because she plagiarized it off of a cartoon that is very vile. It's a lot of F-bombs in that cartoon. It's an adult cartoon. There's a lot of nudity. It's very crass. Like, for her to sit down and watch that and say, okay, I'm going to copy that. So here you go. She copied the entire scene from this cartoon.
Mom, do we have to be naked?
Well, that's the whole point, sweetie. This is a Korean spa where all women can feel comfortable in the nude.
Still, I think I'd prefer to keep my robe. Oh, I was not ready for this, and now I'm fine.
You can't take off your robe. You look like a busted Smeagol, you flat-chested beanpole-ass bitch.
Mom, I know I shouldn't care so much, and I'm really sorry to disappoint you, but I just don't want anyone to see my weird body.
That's bull honky.
Mom, language.
I'm sorry, but your body is gorgeous. Just like all the women in here. Look around.
Lousy woo! There sure are.
The psychosis that she must have to just look at a cartoon and say, I'm gonna plagiarize that. I've talked about her plagiarism in previous videos, but I just wanted to dissect how crazy that is to just look at mainstream television shows, and she somehow got stuck. I don't know what trauma made her get stuck in the childhood dream of being a princess, but she's very messed up. So finally she brings on her first guest, Margaret Cho. Margaret Cho is a comedian. She is an Asian comedian, like all women comedians, very crass, very sexual. There's a juxtaposition between, okay, you're sexualized, but then she brings up this thing of like, me so horny and love you long time and whatever. There is literally romance scams going on in Asia where women are purporting to be in love with men to get money. They are capitalizing on love you long time. They are. So what about them?
Me love you long time. Me love you long time.
What about the women who know that they're doing the casting couch because they're infinite amount of women just like you in Hollywood that have the minimal talent you have? Oh, by the way, there's ads in there as well. They have an ad for ADT Security, which I'm just like, if she's sponsored by ADT Security, like, doesn't she have her security? ADT could totally give that to her and sponsor her for that. By the way, I'm doing this because I have done sound bites of her podcast and people keep telling me that they don't want to hear her voice. They feel very triggered. So I'm doing this way. I can do sound bites of everything and I will do a few, but I know that it upsets a lot of people because her voice is so fraudulent and so fake, and everything she says and does is just, you know, you recoil. I understand that. So she goes on about Margaret Cho's career and how great she is. And of course, Margaret Cho says how great Meghan is because sadly, that's what she has to do. Both of the guests on the podcast actually carry the show because they have personalities and Meghan does not have one. She goes on about how Margaret Cho's career has been great because she's been so brash and so unacceptable. And she's lesbian and she's queer and she's this and she's that, and she grew up in San Francisco and yet nobody accepted her in San Francisco. Literally. Okay, whatever. She brings up Margaret Cho's series, which is All American Girl or whatever it is. And then, of course, Meghan chooses the most cheesiest, not funny.
Margaret, do you know why I encourage your brother to become a cardiologist? No. Because I always knew that one day you'd give me a heart attack. What are you wearing?
She says to Margaret Cho, you just kept lifting up your voice. You're lifting up your voice. Like, it is so nonsense.
And she keeps lifting up her own voice.
Or you have a voice, you don't have a voice. Like, you know? And then Meghan Markle says, as we often do in our podcast, we have looked towards professionals. You know, you don't have a brand. You don't have a long living, podcast or anything like that. So why are you talking about things you normally do? Like, we don't know you though. We don't know you. Who are you, darling? So expert sociologist Nancy Wong comes on here. She's talking about hypersexualized Asian women and how she was at a conference, and it kind of sounds a bit racist as well because she's like, I was the only one of my kind there, and then these other people were like, love you long time or whatever, me so horny. And it's like, but who are those other people that you're talking about? And they probably never even saw the movie where that quote came from. But who are you talking about? And Atlanta, I'm picturing a black man saying it to her. Just saying. So Meghan talks about her deep lore knowledge of Asian movies and women, and she knows all this stuff and everything. And then suddenly Margaret Cho says, but my father was this beautiful man and he had this bookshop in this gay area of San Francisco. Which, you know what I mean? Which part was it? Oh, the whole part. You know, men's beauty is such a big thing in Korea. And Meghan's like,
South Korea's primary export is male beauty.
Is that true?
It is.
Oh my gosh, I had no
Male
idea.
beauty, well, if you think about BTS, you think about all the K-drama, all the stars.
oh, really? Is that a big thing in Korea? Hello, BTS. You know, Ollie London is trying to look like a BTS. He's trying to change himself. All Leilani is an English man trying to change himself into a Korean good-looking man. It is a big cultural thing that's going on. Oh, I'm just seeing something. Harry and Meghan donate 1 million to women in need. Well, is it donate or pledge?
I use pledge and donation synonymous with one another. They
But
do
I
the same
don't.
thing.
Misheard.
Some people don't know the difference. I'm just saying. Which is it? Going back to Margaret Cho, this is where she talks about her real platform, which is people with AIDS, which is a real platform, which is a real cause. And she goes into that. And I'm just wondering, like, Meghan as the interviewer, her only cause is that Procter & Gamble, annoying as they are, responded to her. And from 11 years old, she has not got past that. Meanwhile, people are actually tackling real issues in life. You know, Meghan has nothing to say about that cause, which is a huge cause. Meghan just segues back to Margaret Cho being a woman. And that's what it's all about. You're a woman. So then she goes into the Rodney King thing and talks about her friends calling her at the time of the riots and everything like that. And that, you know, this community was rocked by that riot, the Korean community, and what it meant, because at the time, it was the same time. No, it wasn't. It was actually 2 years later that Margaret Cho launched her sitcom. So I don't know the relevance. But anyhow, somehow she brings it in. So Margaret Cho does talk about the dehumanizing of Asian women. And Meghan is like, yes, totally.
It's like the shorthand of massage parlor or Asian spas. It's dehumanizing, and it's like only a fraction of who we could be.
But isn't that what you did at the very start of your podcast when you talked about naked Asian women walking around? Isn't that you dehumanizing them? Let me move on. Oh, another self-report though. When she says,
It's a different version of saying like, oh, I don't read the stories, I don't read tabloids, but you see the headline, so it makes an imprint. So you might not know where this unconscious bias or this stereotype that you have in your head about someone comes from.
Right.
no, you said you didn't read any tabloids referring to you in England, and you didn't know anything, and then someone had to tell you what they said in the tabloids and so on and so forth. Also, if you don't read the tabloids, then you don't read the tabloids. You don't read the headlines, you don't read anything. You just, is that Inquirer? Nope. Don't care. It's really, she's not very clever. Oh, Lisa Ling, the broadcast journalist, she comes on the scene. She does carry the rest of the show, but very interestingly, she doesn't agree that she's been sexualized at all. She thinks actually she hasn't been sexualized. And that kind of cancels Meghan's whole argument, and Meghan becomes like, okay, oh, right, okay, oh, okay. Okay. Instead of asking her, like, what do you mean by that? And then be able to challenge her and even maybe introduce the argument that you were sexualized in that sense. Nope. She can't say nothing. She's been defeated. She gives up easily. Right? So then she starts promoting Margaret Cho again and her being inside of this American world as a Korean girl. And I just want to say that I don't want Meghan Markle to ever promote me in anything I do. She's the worst. She's not even interested in how to promote another person. So Margaret Cho explains that she's not what Koreans wanted at the time, and Meghan describes her as a trailblazer.
I think most people would describe you as a trailblazer. Did you feel that pressure at the time, or were you just doing what felt authentic to you?
Everyone hated you. That means you're a trailblazer like me. In her closing of this podcast, she asks her guests, what 3 words would you use to describe yourself as a kid? Because she's trying to be this little mermaid for the children. She's trying to be this princess for young girls. And that's why the whole shenanigans happened at the Queen's funeral, where she talked to a plant in the audience, a young girl who said, you're so beautiful. I mean, it's so mental illness. So anyway, I was going to talk about some more things, but I will talk about it in my next video, because I want to talk about how different she is when she's not controlling her own podcast and editing it 5 months after shooting it. and the jump cuts and everything. When she's really live, I want to talk about those interviews because I have a lot of footage of those interviews and I want to include them and talk about them. But anyway, thank you so much for watching me. And if you do like it, press the like button and share it. Most importantly, I know that you are subscribed, but if you aren't, please do. Love you very much. So nice talking to you, and I will see you back here. Love you.
Why did the world change me?